Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dave Wisniewski with Safer Arizona here, broadcasting from an undisclosed location in Phoenix, Arizona with Tom Dean, attorney for cannabis. Thanks for being here, Tom.
Hey, Dave. All right, man. Good to be here. Thank you for doing this broadcast tonight.
Now, for our viewers, if you remember, a few weeks back, we had Maricopa County attorney come out with a new policy that would help some people get their marijuana charges dismissed. Now, Tom, can you give us a brief summary of what policy that is and how's it been working out since this policy has been written out?
Sure. You're talking about Maricopa County attorney Alistair Adele. She was brought in to replace Bill Montgomery when he accepted Governor Ducey's appointment to the Supreme Court, the Arizona Supreme Court. So he's gone. He was a very, hardcore prohibitionist for many years in Maricopa County, and that was reflected in many of his policies. Alistair Adele, the jury was out, so to speak, about just how she would handle marijuana policy going forward at the county attorney's office. It is the third largest prosecuting agency in the country. So it's a big deal what her policies are, and they prosecute well over half of all of the felony charges, the marijuana charges in the state of Arizona. So it's a big deal what those policies are. She announced a month ago, to everyone's surprise, I think, a departure from the Montgomery administration there, and said that from now on, if you are busted and charged with possession of marijuana that involved less than 2.5 ounces, if after the fact you go out and get your medical marijuana card, she will dismiss the charges. The county attorney's office will file a motion to dismiss those charges. So if you don't have a card, you get caught with marijuana, you're able to then go get your card after the fact, and the county attorney's office policy is that they will go ahead and dismiss that charge.
Well, that sounds a lot better than just getting hit with felonies. Now, does this also include...
you hit with the felony. You get hit with the felony possession of marijuana. But after you get hit with the felony, if you're able to produce that card, then they will dismiss the case. Now, I wasn't sure if they were serious about this, so I tested it. And I have had 4 cases now. 3 cases already dismissed, a 4th one on the way, dismissed under this policy. So she did live up to the pronouncement that she made about a month ago or so, that she would do this. So it's been tested.
All right.
It's been proven she is indeed dismissing these cases for possession of marijuana if you go out and get your medical marijuana card after the fact.
Well, that sounds pretty good. That sounds like progress. I mean, it's definitely not anything close to the legalization that we fight and advocate for, but it's better than the status quo than we had before. But you were telling me that there's also potentially something better coming down the pipeline than this new policy. Now, can you kind of get into that a little bit?
Yeah. There's Alistair Adele is up for election. I almost said re-election, but it's not re-election, because when Montgomery left, she was appointed by the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to fill his spot, to fill his vacancy. So this is the first time that she's been up for election. And she's running against Democrat candidate Julie Gunnagle, who has come out with very strong, even more liberal policies with regard to marijuana possession charges. And I think she even goes farther than that in terms of her policies of charging marijuana cases in general. But knowing that we were going to be doing this broadcast, I contacted Julie Gunnagle, whom I definitely support. I think she would be a great county attorney, would really be, I think, a pivot point in Arizona politics when it comes to persecuting marijuana consumers in the state of Arizona. And if I may, I would like to just quote Julie Gunnagle fresh from the presses today, when I asked her if she'd like to make a comment, because we were going to do this broadcast about Alistair Adele's policies, and she said yes, she would like to also make a statement. And she said, well, these cases should not be charged to begin with, period. So unlike Alistair Adele, who's saying, once we charge you with a felony marijuana possession, you can then get your card and we'll dismiss it. Julie Gunnagle is saying, we shouldn't be filing these charges to begin with anyway. Possession of marijuana.
Well, I agree with that.
And she went on to say, the public should know that these cases still waste taxpayer dollars by continuing arrests, booking, charging, and court time, even if the result is that they are dismissed. Moreover, this policy continues to leave behind those who cannot afford or are ineligible for a card. It's well past the time to start charging low-level marijuana offenses in our state. So let me unpack that just a little bit. She's saying, first of all, under Alistair Adele's policies, the person is first charged with a felony. That's at great expense to that person, who likely is going to hire an attorney, is going to have the inconvenience of being charged with a felony, is going to have that felony charge on their record, is going to cost a lot of taxpayer dollars just to get to the point where Alistair Adele is willing to dismiss it. Now, that's great that she's willing to dismiss it, but that's a lot of wasted resources and a huge inconvenience on that individual's life. So Julie Gunnigal is saying this shouldn't be charged, period, because it's a waste to even file these charges. Moreover, she said, what about people who can't afford to get a medical marijuana card? That's $150 after you go to the doctor. So you go to the doctor, you get your card, they're going to charge you $150. Then you got to go to the Department of Health Services and pay another $150. That's an expense that some people just can't afford, or they might not have a debilitating medical condition that qualifies them for a card. So she's saying, why should we have to make them jump through those hoops and go to that expense and make the taxpayers pay for all of the as she said, taxpayer dollars that are spent on arrests, bookings, charging, court time, all of that at taxpayer expense? She's saying we shouldn't even be dealing with that to begin with. And also, how is that fair to the person who's unable to afford or might be ineligible for a card? And her concluding statement was, it's well past time to stop charging low-level marijuana offenses in our state, period. So her position, obviously, much more powerful, much more expansive, a much greater movement in the direction of marijuana policy reform should she be elected.
So if she gets elected, we should expect her to write a policy that goes even further and stops people from getting arrested.
A no charge policy.
For
She's saying
these low level.
She wouldn't even file these charges. Now, I want to give due credit where credit's due for Alistair Adele pursuing this policy and living up to it, because as I said, I've had 4 cases now dismissed, 3 of them dismissed, 1 about to be dismissed according to her policies. So she's living up to the policy that she announced. So credit where credit's due. Julie Gunnigal, on the other hand, is saying, why are we even going through, this process when we know they're going to end up getting the case dismissed? Why are we discriminating on people who can't afford to get a medical marijuana card, or maybe they don't qualify for a medical card? Why are we even charging people with possession of marijuana to begin with, is what Julie Gunnigal's saying. So she gets elected, a much broader, much stronger movement in the direction of marijuana policy reform in Maricopa County, the 3rd largest prosecuting agency in the country.
That's just this upcoming election that people in Maricopa County, right?
That's this upcoming election. So if you live in Maricopa County, you're going to have the opportunity to vote on either Alistair Adele or Julie Gunnigal. Julie is the Democrat candidate, and Alistair Adele is the Republican candidate. Alistair Adele looks like she's moving in the direction of being more liberal than Bill Montgomery, which is great. But Bill Montgomery was a very strong prohibitionist. So any movement is welcomed, of course. And so for those people who are satisfied with that degree of change, then Alistair Adele is your candidate. But if you're looking for broader change, more significant change, and more meaningful change in the area of marijuana policy, then your candidate is Julie Gunnigal, who's running as a Democrat for Maricopa County Attorney this November.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for that information. I'm optimistic about the state of cannabis in Arizona as we move forward. It seems like on a few different fronts we're going to be making some progress, and we are making some progress. Do you have any other things you'd like to say before we conclude this broadcast?
I'd just like to say that I'm very pleased to see that this debate is even happening, that we're moving from a prohibitionist, anti-marijuana period across the board.
Yeah, Bill Montgomery was
position.
pretty hardcore.
Yeah, he had a lockdown in Maricopa County for many years. And that was a very harsh anti-marijuana consumer policy. I mean, let's face it, the war on marijuana is really a war on marijuana consumers, and they are otherwise law-abiding, hardworking people in Arizona that were being persecuted under the Montgomery administration. It's great to see Alistair Adele moving away from that. It's even better to see Julie Gunnigal, if she gets elected. I mean, whether or not, even putting Prop 207 aside, Julie Gunnigal gets in office, it's basically going to be the same thing for more than half of Arizona in the third largest prosecuting agency in the state, or in the country.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tom, I thank you for your time.
All right.
Until next time, this was Dave Wisniewski here with Tom Dean and Safer Arizona. Thank you.
Yeah.